My girlfriend's family showed up with a lawyer demanding half my inheritance. The knock came at 7 in the morning on a Saturday. I was still in my boxers, coffee brewing in the kitchen, when I opened the door to find 5 people standing on my porch. My girlfriend Vanessa was in the center, flanked by her parents on one side and 2 men in suits on the other. Nobody was smiling. "David, we need to talk," Vanessa said. Her voice was flat, practiced. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Her father, Richard, stepped forward with a leather briefcase. Her mother, Patricia, stood rigid with her arms crossed. The 2 men in suits waited behind them like sentries. I looked at Vanessa, searching for some explanation in her face, but she stared past my shoulder into the house. We'd been dating for 18 months. She had a key. She'd never knocked before. "What's going on?" I asked, my hand still on the doorframe. The taller suit stepped forward and extended his hand. "Leonard Briggs, attorney at law. This is my associate, Philip. We represent the Carmichael family. May we come in?" Something cold settled in my stomach. I looked at Vanessa again, but she'd turned slightly away. "Vanessa, what is this?" She finally met my eyes. "Just let them in, David. We need to discuss some things." I stepped back, and they filed into my living room. The house had been my grandfather's. He died 4 months ago and left it to me along with everything else. $300,000 in savings, the house worth another $400, his car, his belongings. I was 29 and suddenly had more money than I'd ever imagined. Vanessa knew all of this. We'd talked about the inheritance, about what it meant for our future, about maybe getting married someday. Richard set his briefcase on my coffee table and opened it with precise movements. Patricia sat on my couch like she owned it. The 2 lawyers remained standing, positioned near the doorway. Vanessa hovered by the window, still not looking at me. "David," Leonard began, pulling out a stack of documents. "We're here regarding the inheritance you received from your grandfather, Thomas Whitmore, deceased March 15th of this year." I nodded slowly. "What about it?" Leonard placed the documents on the table and slid them toward me. "My clients believe they're entitled to a portion of that inheritance, specifically 50%. The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually laughed, a sharp bark of disbelief. "What? Why would... That doesn't make any sense." Richard leaned forward, his hands clasped together. "Vanessa has been your partner for a year and a half. During that time, she supported you emotionally and financially. She helped care for your grandfather in his final months. She's entitled to compensation for her contributions to your household and relationship." I stared at him, then at Vanessa. "You helped my grandfather once. You drove him to a doctor's appointment when I had to work. That's not..." Patricia cut me off. "She was there for you during your grief. She helped you process the estate. She's invested in this relationship and in your future together. The inheritance represents assets that should be shared between partners." Leonard tapped the documents. "We have testimony and evidence of Vanessa's contributions. We're prepared to file a civil suit for unjust enrichment and breach of implied contract. However, we'd prefer to settle this amicably. Sign over 50% of the inheritance value, $350,000, and we can all move forward." My mouth had gone dry. I looked at Vanessa, who was now examining her fingernails. "Vanessa, is this real? Are you seriously doing this?" She finally looked at me, and her expression was hard. "You've changed since you got that money, David. You've become selfish. We talked about our future, about getting married, about building a life together. Then you get all this money and suddenly you're making decisions without me, buying things without consulting me, acting like it's all yours." I couldn't process what I was hearing. "It is all mine. My grandfather left it to me. We're not married. We don't even live together." Richard's voice took on an edge. "You invited my daughter to move in with you twice. She declined because you wouldn't commit to marriage. You've kept her in a holding pattern while you enjoy your newfound wealth." That wasn't true. I'd mentioned her staying over more often, maybe keeping more clothes here, but I'd never asked her to move in. We'd never had a serious conversation about marriage beyond vague future talk. Leonard slid another document across the table. "This is a settlement agreement. You transfer 50% of the inheritance value to Vanessa within 30 days. In exchange, she releases all claims to your property and future earnings. It's a clean break." "And if I don't sign?" I asked, my voice shaking. Leonard's expression didn't change. "Then we file suit on Monday morning. Discovery will be extensive. We'll subpoena your financial records, interview your friends and family, examine every text message and email between you and Vanessa. The process will take years and cost you more in legal fees than the settlement amount. You'll lose either way, but this way is faster and cheaper." Patricia spoke up, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "David, we're not trying to hurt you. We just want what's fair. Vanessa gave you the best year and a half of her life. She deserves something for that investment." I stood up, my hands clenched. "Investment? We were in a relationship. You don't get paid for being someone's girlfriend." Richard stood too, his face reddening. "Watch your tone. My daughter isn't some gold digger. She genuinely cared about you. She stood by you when your grandfather was dying. She comforted you. She was there. That has value." I turned to Vanessa. "Did you ever care about me? Was any of it real?" For just a moment, something flickered across her face. Guilt, maybe, or regret. Then it was gone. "I cared about the person I thought you were, not the person you became." Leonard cleared his throat. "We need an answer, David. Sign the settlement or face litigation. Those are your options." I grabbed my phone off the kitchen counter. Get out of my house, all of you, right now. Philip, the quiet associate, finally spoke. Mr. Whitmore, I'd advise against making hasty decisions. This offer won't be available once we leave. I pointed at the door. I said, get out. I'm not signing anything. If you want to sue me, go ahead. But get the hell out of my house. Richard began gathering the documents, moving with deliberate slowness. Patricia stood and smoothed her skirt, giving me a look of pure contempt. Leonard handed me a business card. You have until Monday at 9 a.m. to reconsider. After that, we file. Your funeral, son. They walked toward the door in a group, Vanessa trailing behind. At the threshold, she turned back. You could have just been reasonable, David. This didn't have to get ugly. Then she was gone, and I was alone in my grandfather's house with my hands shaking and my coffee getting cold on the counter. I stood there for 5 minutes, maybe 10, trying to make sense of what had just happened. The woman I'd thought I might marry had just tried to extort me with her family and their lawyers. I'd been ambushed in my own home, threatened with legal action unless I handed over half of everything my grandfather had left me. I called my best friend Oliver. He answered on the third ring, his voice thick with sleep. This better be important, man. It's 7:30 on a Saturday. I told him everything. When I finished, he was silent for a long moment. Holy shit, David, that's insane. You need a lawyer. Like right now. Today. He gave me the name of his cousin, Amanda Reeves, who practiced family and civil law. I called her immediately, got her voicemail, left a rambling message explaining the situation. She called back 20 minutes later. Mr. Whitmore, I'm glad you called me before signing anything. What they're attempting is legally questionable at best. Can you come to my office today? I have time at 11. I met her in a small office downtown. Amanda was in her 40s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She listened to my story without interrupting, taking notes on a legal pad. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. First, let's be clear. They have no legal basis for this claim. Unjust enrichment requires proof that you received a benefit at their expense, and that keeping it would be unjust. Your grandfather's inheritance is yours by will. Vanessa has no claim to it under any legal theory I can think of. Relief washed through me. So they're bluffing? Amanda hesitated. Not exactly. They can still file a nuisance suit. It'll get dismissed eventually, but it'll cost you time and money to defend. That's what they're counting on. They want you scared enough to settle just to make it go away. What do I do? I asked. She pulled out a blank legal pad. First, document everything. Write down exactly what happened this morning. Every word you can remember. Do you have any texts or emails from Vanessa or her family about the inheritance? I pulled out my phone and started scrolling. There were dozens of messages from Vanessa over the past 4 months. Most were innocuous, but some stood out. One from 2 weeks ago. Have you thought more about what we discussed? I really think we should make this official. Another from a month ago. Your grandfather would have wanted us to be together. He told me once that he liked me for you. I showed Amanda. She photographed each message with her phone. Good. These show she was interested in the inheritance, but they're not explicit. What about conversations? Did she ever directly ask for money? I thought back. Not directly. She suggested expensive trips, talked about houses we could buy together, mentioned wanting a nice engagement ring someday. She started bringing it up more after my grandfather died. Amanda made notes. Classic financial abuse indicators. She was grooming you, getting you used to the idea of sharing the wealth. When you didn't move fast enough, they escalated to this. She looked up at me. David, I need you to understand something. This family is dangerous. They've done this before, I guarantee it. Everything about this morning was choreographed. They brought a lawyer to your house at 7 a.m. on a Saturday to catch you off guard. They threatened litigation to scare you into signing. They positioned it as avoiding hassle. This is a con, and you're the mark. My stomach turned. You think Vanessa was with me just for the money? Even before my grandfather died? Amanda's expression softened. I think she saw an opportunity when he got sick and you became his heir. Whether she cared about you before that, I can't say. But this kind of coordinated family attack doesn't happen overnight. They've been planning this. I felt sick. 18 months of my life, gone. A relationship I'd thought was building toward marriage, revealed as a setup. What happens now? Amanda stood and walked to her file cabinet. Now we go on offense. I'm going to draft a cease and desist letter to their attorney. If they contact you again, we file for a restraining order and report them to the state bar for harassment. I'll also prepare a countersuit for emotional distress and attempted extortion. We make this expensive and painful for them. She pulled out a retainer agreement. My rate is $300 an hour. I'll need a $5,000 retainer to start. If they actually file suit, we'll crush them in court and seek sanctions against their lawyer for filing a frivolous claim. You'll get your money back and then some. I signed the retainer agreement and wrote the check. As I was leaving, Amanda stopped me at the door. David, one more thing. Change your locks today. All of them. If Vanessa has a key, assume she's made copies. Get a security camera for your front door. Document any contact attempts. And whatever you do, don't communicate with any of them without me present. Understood? I drove straight to a hardware store and bought new locks. I spent the afternoon installing them, then set up a cheap wireless camera pointed at my front door. The physical work helped, gave me something to focus on besides the betrayal churning in my gut. My phone buzzed constantly. Texts from Vanessa. We need to talk. You're being unreasonable. My lawyer says you're making a mistake. I forwarded each one to Amanda without responding. By evening, the messages shifted tone. I can't believe you're doing this to me. After everything I did for you. You're going to regret this. Then her mother started texting from a number I didn't have saved. You're breaking my daughter's heart. She loved you, and this is how you repay her? We will see you in court, you selfish bastard. I blocked both numbers and sent screenshots to Amanda. She replied immediately, perfect. Keep them coming. This helps us. Oliver came over that night with pizza and beer. We sat on my back porch, and I told him everything Amanda had said. So they're con artists? He asked, halfway through his third slice. I nodded. Amanda thinks they've done this before. The whole thing was too organized. The lawyer, the early morning ambush, the specific dollar amount. They had it all planned. Oliver shook his head. Man, I never trusted Vanessa. She always seemed too interested in your grandfather's health, asking when he was going to the doctor, what the prognosis was, whether he had a will. I thought she was just being supportive, but now, he trailed off. I'd missed it. All of it. The signs had been there, and I'd been too close to see them. Amanda's sending a cease and desist letter on Monday, I said. If they back off, it's over. If they actually file the suit, we fight it and countersue. Oliver raised his beer. To fighting back, and to your grandfather, for leaving you something worth fighting for. We drank, and I tried to feel victorious, but mostly, I just felt tired and betrayed. Monday morning came. I went to work at the construction firm where I manage projects. My phone stayed quiet until noon, when Amanda called. They filed, she said without preamble. Just got notice from the court. They're suing for $350,000, claiming unjust enrichment and breach of implied contract. They're also alleging emotional distress and intentional infliction of emotional harm. My legs went weak. I sat down hard in my office chair. They actually did it. Amanda's voice was calm. Yes, and it's even flimsier than I expected. Their complaint is 20 pages of vague allegations and hurt feelings. They claim Vanessa provided essential services to your household and grandfather, but they don't specify what those services were. They claim you promised to share your future with her, which they're interpreting as a contractual obligation to split assets. It's garbage, David, but we still have to respond. How long will this take? I asked. She sighed. Realistically, 6 months to a year if they drag it out. We'll file a motion to dismiss immediately. The judge should throw it out, but if they appeal, it extends the timeline, and they're going to make discovery as painful as possible. They'll subpoena everything. Your bank records, your grandfather's will, all communications with Vanessa. They'll depose your friends and family. It's going to be invasive and exhausting. I closed my eyes. And expensive. Amanda was quiet for a moment. Yes, I'll do everything I can to keep costs down, but this will probably run you $30,000 to $50,000 in legal fees. Maybe more if they appeal. I'm sorry, David. This is what they're counting on. Most people settle because fighting costs more than giving in. But I couldn't give in. This wasn't just about money. It was about principle. They'd tried to steal from me, to take what my grandfather had left me. If I paid them, they'd do it to someone else. We fight, I said. All the way. Amanda's voice warmed. Good. I'll file our response by end of week. In the meantime, prepare yourself. This is going to get worse before it gets better. She was right. That afternoon, my work email received a message from an unknown address. The subject line was legal notice. Inside was a PDF of the lawsuit, sent directly to my work account. Someone was trying to embarrass me professionally. I forwarded it to Amanda. By evening, my social media had exploded. Vanessa had posted on her profiles, all of which I'd forgotten to block. Heartbroken and betrayed by someone I trusted. Sometimes people show their true colors when money is involved. Lawyer up if you have to, but karma always wins. The post had dozens of comments. Friends of hers, people I'd met at parties, weighing in. So sorry you're going through this. You deserve better. Praying for you. One comment from her mother. My strong daughter. We stand with you against injustice. I wanted to respond, to defend myself, to tell the truth. Instead, I blocked everyone and called Amanda. Don't engage, she said firmly. Not one word. She's trying to provoke you into saying something she can use in court. Let her post whatever she wants. In discovery, we'll subpoena her social media. If she's lied, it'll hurt her credibility. Oliver posted a vague comment on his own page. Reminder that you never really know what's happening in someone else's situation. Maybe wait for all the facts before taking sides. Vanessa's friends descended on him within hours. He deleted the post and called me, apologetic. I was trying to help, man. I didn't think they'd come after me, too. I told him it was fine, but I felt guilty. This mess was spreading, affecting people around me. My co-workers started acting weird. Nothing overt, just a slight distance, like they weren't sure how to interact with someone in the middle of a lawsuit. One of the junior project managers, Kyle, pulled me aside at lunch. Hey, I saw some stuff online about you and your girlfriend. You okay? I gave him a brief version. He listened, then shook his head. My uncle went through something similar. His ex tried to claim common law marriage to get half his business. Took 3 years to resolve. Courts don't care about the truth, just what you can prove. His words stayed with me all day. 3 years. I couldn't do this for 3 years. When I got home that night, there was a notice taped to my front door. A process server had attempted delivery of legal documents. I'd missed them by 20 minutes. The notice instructed me to pick up the documents at the county courthouse within 5 days or face default judgment. I called Amanda immediately. She was annoyed. They're using intimidation tactics. I'm your attorney of record. They should have served me. I'll file a complaint with the court. But yes, we need to pick up those documents tomorrow. The next morning, we met at the courthouse. The clerk handed over a thick envelope of papers. Amanda flipped through them, her expression darkening. They've filed an emergency motion for a temporary restraining order against you. They're claiming you threatened Vanessa and her family during the meeting at your house. They want you barred from contacting any of them or coming within 500 feet. My vision blurred. What? I didn't threaten anyone. I told them to leave my house. Amanda kept reading. They have affidavits from all 5 people who were there. Each one claims you became aggressive and hostile. Richard says you advanced on him in a threatening manner. Vanessa says you raised your hand as if to strike her. The lawyers say they felt unsafe and feared for their clients. I couldn't breathe. That's completely false. I stood up. I pointed at the door. I never raised my hand to anyone. Amanda's jaw tightened. I believe you. But now we have 5 people on record saying otherwise. The hearing for the restraining order is tomorrow at 2 p.m. We need to be ready. We spent the rest of the day preparing. Amanda asked me detailed questions about that morning. Where was everyone standing? What were my exact movements? Did I make any gestures that could be misinterpreted? I walked her through it 3 times, each recounting the same. When I stood up, both hands had been clenched at my sides. When I pointed at the door, I'd used my whole arm, not just a finger. The motion had been firm, but not aggressive. Did you record the meeting? Amanda asked. I shook my head. I didn't think to. It was 7 in the morning. I wasn't expecting an ambush. She made notes. We'll argue that their testimony is coordinated and self-serving. They need the restraining order to paint you as dangerous, which supports their narrative of emotional distress. But without evidence on either side, it's, he said, she said. The judge might grant a temporary order just to be safe. The thought of being legally barred from contacting Vanessa didn't bother me, but the implications terrified me. If a judge granted the order, it would create a record of me being potentially dangerous. It would follow me. Employers would see it. Future partners would see it. My reputation would carry this stain forever. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my grandfather's bed, in his house, staring at the ceiling and replaying every moment of my relationship with Vanessa. Had there been signs? Red flags I'd missed? I thought about the first time we'd met, at a mutual friend's barbecue. She'd been charming, easy to talk to. We'd hit it off immediately. She'd seemed genuinely interested in my work, my family, my life. When I'd mentioned my grandfather, her eyes had lit up. Family is so important, she'd said. You're lucky to have him. 2 months later, when my grandfather's health started declining, she'd offered to help. Let me come to appointments with you, she'd said. You shouldn't have to do this alone. I'd been grateful. She'd seemed supportive, kind. When he'd died, she'd been there at the funeral, holding my hand. He's in a better place, she'd whispered, and he made sure you were taken care of. That's love. At the time, I'd thought she was comforting me. Now I heard the subtext. He made sure you were taken care of financially. He left you money we could share. The restraining order hearing was in a small courtroom with wood paneling and harsh fluorescent lights. Vanessa sat on the opposite side with her parents and Leonard Briggs. She looked pale and small, wearing a conservative dress and minimal makeup. She'd positioned herself to look vulnerable. The judge was a woman in her 60s named Margaret Holbrook. She read through the motion and affidavits with a neutral expression, then looked at me. Mr. Whitmore, you're accused of threatening behavior toward Ms. Carmichael and her family. How do you respond? Amanda stood. Your Honor, my client categorically denies these allegations. The meeting in question occurred at his home, without notice, at 7 a.m. on a Saturday. Ms. Carmichael and her family arrived with attorneys to demand a significant portion of his inheritance. When Mr. Whitmore declined their proposal, he asked them to leave his property. At no point did he threaten anyone or act in a physically aggressive manner. Leonard stood. Your Honor, we have sworn affidavits from 5 witnesses, including 2 attorneys, all stating that Mr. Whitmore became hostile and threatening. My clients feared for their safety. Ms. Carmichael, in particular, has expressed genuine concern that Mr. Whitmore may retaliate against her for pursuing her legal rights. Judge Holbrook looked at me. Mr. Whitmore, did you stand up during this meeting? I nodded. Yes, Your Honor, but she held up a hand. Did you point at the door? I hesitated. Yes, but I was asking them to leave. I didn't. Judge Holbrook cut me off again. Did you raise your voice? Amanda tried to interject, but the judge waved her down. I answered honestly. I may have. I was upset. They were trying to extort me. Leonard pounced. Your Honor, the respondent just admitted to aggressive behavior. He stood, he pointed, he raised his voice. My clients reasonably perceived this as threatening. Judge Holbrook sighed. I'm going to grant a temporary restraining order for 30 days. Mr. Whitmore, you are not to contact Ms. Carmichael or her family directly or indirectly. You're to stay 500 feet away from their residences and places of work. This order does not constitute a finding of wrongdoing, merely a precautionary measure while the underlying civil suit proceeds. Understood? I wanted to argue, to scream that this was unjust. But Amanda's hand on my arm stopped me. Yes, Your Honor, I said through gritted teeth. We left the courthouse in silence. In her car, Amanda finally spoke. I'm sorry, David. Judge Holbrook is conservative on these issues. She'd rather grant the order and be safe than deny it and risk something happening. I stared out the window. So now I have a restraining order on my record for a crime I didn't commit. Amanda's voice was gentle. It's temporary. After 30 days, we'll fight the extension. And in the civil case, we'll prove their claims are baseless. This is a setback, but it's not fatal. But it felt fatal. It felt like losing, like they were winning. That night, I sat in my living room with a drink I didn't want and stared at the wall. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hope you enjoyed court today. This is just the beginning. I forwarded it to Amanda without responding. The next morning, I woke to find my truck had been vandalized. Someone had keyed the passenger side, long, deep scratches spelling out, thief. I called the police. An officer came out, took photos, wrote a report. Any idea who might have done this? He asked. I told him about the lawsuit, the restraining order. He nodded slowly. You should file a report, but unless you have evidence of who did it, there's not much we can do. I called Amanda. She added it to our growing file of harassment. We're building a pattern, she said. Every incident helps show who the real aggressor is here. But knowing it would help eventually didn't fix my truck now. I drove to work with thief, visible to everyone on the highway. 2 days later, I got a call from my property insurance company. Someone had filed a claim against my homeowner's policy. Vanessa, claiming she'd been injured at my house and needed medical compensation. What injury? I asked the insurance rep. She read from the claim. Slip and fall on your front steps. Bruised ribs, sprained ankle, emotional trauma. She's claiming $10,000 in damages. I closed my eyes. When did this supposedly happen? Papers rustled. According to the claim, the day of your confrontation. She says you created a hazardous environment that led to her injury. It was insane. Completely fabricated. But I had to file a counterstatement, explain the situation, provide evidence it didn't happen. My insurance company assigned an investigator. More time, more energy, more stress. That weekend, my mother called. She'd heard about the lawsuit from a family friend. David, what's going on? Linda's daughter saw something on social media about you being sued. I explained everything. She listened quietly, then spoke carefully. Your grandfather's money is yours. If this girl is trying to take it, you fight her. But David, are you sure you didn't promise her anything? Sometimes we say things without realizing. I cut her off. Mom, I didn't promise her anything. She's lying. Her whole family is lying. My mother was silent for a moment. Okay, I believe you. What can I do to help? Her support meant everything. Just believe me, I said. That's enough. But it wasn't enough. The next week, Amanda called with worse news. They've subpoenaed your employer. They're demanding copies of your personnel file, salary information, and any disciplinary records. They're also requiring your supervisor to sit for a deposition. My stomach dropped. Can they do that? Amanda sighed. Unfortunately, yes. It's part of discovery. They're looking for anything they can use to paint you in a bad light. Have you ever had any issues at work? Disciplinary action? Complaints? Anything? I thought hard. No. Clean record. But this is going to look terrible. My boss having to testify about me in a lawsuit? Amanda's voice was sympathetic. I'll try to quash the subpoena as overly broad, but prepare for this to get uncomfortable at work. She was right. My boss, Gerald, called me into his office 3 days later. He looked uncomfortable, the subpoena on his desk between us. David, I need to understand what's happening. I've got lawyers demanding information about you, and I'm reading claims online that you're involved in some kind of financial dispute with your ex-girlfriend. I explained the situation as calmly as I could. Gerald listened, his expression unreadable. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. I believe you. You've been a solid employee, but I have to tell you, this is creating problems. The company doesn't like being dragged into employee personal matters. If this escalates, if it starts affecting your work or our reputation, we'll have to reconsider your position here. Fear shot through me. You're saying I could lose my job over this? Gerald's face softened. I'm saying be careful. Resolve this quickly if you can. The longer it drags on, the worse it looks for everyone. I left his office feeling like the walls were closing in. They weren't just attacking my finances and reputation. They were threatening my livelihood. That night, Oliver came over with his girlfriend, Rachel. She was a paralegal, and Oliver thought she might have insight. Rachel listened to my story, then asked pointed questions. Did you ever give Vanessa access to your bank accounts? No. Did you ever put her name on any assets? No. Did you ever sign anything she gave you? I froze. Wait, there was one thing. She asked me to sign a lease renewal for her apartment. She said her landlord required both our signatures since I was staying over sometimes. Rachel's eyes widened. Do you remember what the document said? I tried to recall. It was a standard lease form. I skimmed it. Signed at the bottom where she pointed. Rachel looked at Oliver, then at me. David, you need to get a copy of that document immediately. If it wasn't actually a lease, if it was some kind of contract or agreement, they might claim you signed something giving them legal standing. My blood ran cold. How do I get a copy? Rachel pulled out her phone. What was the landlord's name? I couldn't remember. Vanessa had handled all of it. I just signed where she'd pointed, trusting her. Rachel's expression was grim. We need to find this. If that document exists and says something different than what she told you, This whole case just got much more complicated. I called Amanda immediately. She instructed me to write down everything I remembered about that signing. The date, the circumstances, what Vanessa had said, what the document looked like. I stayed up until 3 in the morning, trying to remember details. The paper had been standard size. The print had been small. There had been multiple pages, but I'd only signed the last one. Vanessa had been smiling, casual. Just a formality, she'd said. My landlord's weird about these things. I'd trusted her. Signed without reading. And now that signature might be the weapon they needed to destroy me. Amanda filed an emergency discovery motion demanding any and all documents bearing my signature that Vanessa or her family possessed. Leonard Briggs responded with a lengthy objection, claiming the request was overly broad and harassing. The judge scheduled a hearing. Meanwhile, the harassment continued. Someone created a fake social media account using my name and photos stolen from my real accounts. The fake account posted inflammatory content, racist jokes, sexist comments, aggressive political statements. Friends started contacting me, confused and concerned. David, what's going on with your posts? This isn't like you. I had to explain again and again that it wasn't me, that someone was impersonating me. I reported the account to the platform. It got taken down after 3 days, but screenshots had already circulated. The damage was done. Amanda added it to our file. This is defamation. We're building a strong counter case. But David, you need to be prepared. They're going to keep escalating until you either break or the judge shuts them down. I was getting close to breaking. The stress was affecting everything. I wasn't sleeping. I'd lost 15 pounds. At work, I was making mistakes, missing deadlines. Gerald called me in again. David, I'm putting you on temporary leave. Paid. 2 weeks. Get yourself together. Deal with this lawsuit. Come back when you're ready to focus. It felt like a punishment, even though Gerald meant it kindly. I went home in the middle of the day and sat in my empty house, wondering how my life had spiraled so far out of control. That evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. David? A man's voice I didn't recognize. This is Colin Webster. I'm Vanessa's ex-boyfriend from 3 years ago. I need to talk to you. My heart started pounding. How did you get my number? Colin sounded nervous. Friend of a friend. Look, I saw the lawsuit online. Court records are public. I need to tell you something. Vanessa did this to me too. I sat down hard on my couch. What? Colin took a deep breath. 3 years ago, my dad died. Left me about $200,000. Vanessa and I had been dating for a year. A month after my dad died, she and her family showed up at my apartment with a lawyer. Same setup. They claimed she was entitled to half because she'd supported me emotionally. Claimed I'd promised to marry her and share everything. I could barely speak. What happened? Colin's voice was bitter. I fought it, like you're doing. It took 18 months and cost me $40,000 in legal fees. Eventually, they dropped the suit, but not before destroying my reputation and my mental health. I had to move to a different city to start over. I'm calling because you need to know what you're up against. They're professionals, David. They've done this multiple times. Vanessa targets men who are about to inherit money. She gets close, waits for the relative to die, then strikes. My hands were shaking. Multiple times? How many? Colin was quiet for a moment. I found 2 others besides me. There might be more. One guy settled and signed an NDA. The other fought it and won, but it ruined him financially. The legal fees bankrupted him even though he won the case. I felt sick. Why didn't you report them? To the police or the bar association? Colin's laugh was hollow. I tried. The police said it was a civil matter. The bar association said the lawyer hadn't technically broken any rules. The system protects them, David. They know exactly how far they can push without crossing into criminal territory. I asked Colin if he'd be willing to testify, to provide evidence. He hesitated. I'm scared of them. They threatened me after I won. Said they'd come after me again if I ever talked about the case. But yeah, I'll testify. Someone needs to stop them. I gave him Amanda's contact information and thanked him. After we hung up, I called Amanda immediately. She was silent as I explained what Colin had told me. Then she spoke, slowly. David, this changes everything. If we can prove a pattern of this behavior, we might be able to get criminal charges filed. This isn't just a civil dispute anymore. This is fraud, conspiracy, potentially racketeering if we can prove they've done it systematically for financial gain. Hope flickered for the first time in weeks. Can we really charge them criminally? Amanda's voice was cautious. It's hard. We'd need to convince a prosecutor that this is worth pursuing. But with multiple victims willing to testify, we have a chance. Let me talk to Colin, get his evidence. Then I'll reach out to the district attorney's office. Over the next week, Amanda worked with Colin to gather everything he had. Copies of the lawsuit, the settlement demands, threatening messages from the Carmichael family. Colin also connected us with the other victim he'd found, a man named Trevor, who'd settled 3 years before Colin's case. Trevor had signed an NDA, but Amanda argued that NDAs related to criminal activity were unenforceable. Trevor was reluctant, but agreed to speak with Amanda off the record. The picture that emerged was chilling. Vanessa had a type, single men in their late 20s with aging or recently deceased relatives. She'd cultivated relationships with them, gathering information about their family finances. When the inheritance came through, her family would strike with coordinated legal threats, demanding settlements to avoid lengthy litigation. Most victims settled. It was cheaper than fighting. Those who didn't settle faced months or years of harassment, financial strain, and reputational damage. The Carmichaels had refined their system over at least 5 years, possibly longer. Amanda compiled everything into a comprehensive packet and requested a meeting with the district attorney's office. 2 weeks later, we sat in a conference room with an assistant district attorney named Simon Northrop. He was young, maybe 35, with an intensity that gave me hope. Amanda presented the evidence methodically. The pattern of behavior across multiple victims, the coordinated family involvement, the specific tactics, ambush meetings, legal threats, harassment campaigns, false restraining orders. Simon listened without interrupting, making notes. When Amanda finished, he leaned back in his chair. This is compelling. If everything you're saying is accurate, we're looking at potential fraud, extortion, and conspiracy charges. But I need more. I need bank records showing financial gain from previous settlements. I need the other victims willing to testify in criminal proceedings. And I need evidence that they knew their claims were false, which is hard to prove. Amanda nodded. We can get you what you need. Trevor settled for $50,000 3 years ago. Colin fought his case but has documentation of harassment and threats. David here has documented everything in real time. If we can coordinate with the other victims, we can build a comprehensive case. Simon tapped his pen on the table. Okay, here's what I can do. I'll open an investigation. No promises, but I'll look into it. If what you're saying checks out, we'll consider filing charges. In the meantime, Mr. Whitmore, you continue with your civil case. If we move forward criminally, it'll actually help your defense. We left the meeting with cautious optimism. Amanda warned me not to expect quick results. Criminal cases take time, months, maybe a year. But the important thing is that someone's taking this seriously. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. The knowledge that we were fighting back, that there might be real consequences for the Carmichaels, gave me strength. But the relief was short-lived. 2 days later, I received notice that Vanessa's legal team had filed an amended complaint, increasing their demand to $500,000. The new complaint included additional claims: intentional infliction of emotional distress, fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty. Amanda explained over the phone. They're panicking. They've heard rumors that we're building a criminal case. They're escalating, trying to pressure you into settling before the criminal investigation gains traction. It's a desperate move. I read through the amended complaint, my anger building with each page. They claimed I'd manipulated Vanessa into a relationship solely to exploit her caregiving labor with my grandfather. They claimed I'd promised her marriage and children, then reneged once I had my inheritance. They claimed I'd subjected her to emotional abuse and financial control. Every word was a lie, but it was all stated as fact in a legal document that would become part of public record. My breaking point came the next morning. I arrived at my house after a grocery run to find graffiti spray painted across my garage door, "Con Artist," in large red letters. The security camera had captured everything. A figure in a hoodie, face obscured, spray painting my property at 3 a.m. I couldn't make out features, but the build looked like it could be Richard or one of Vanessa's brothers I hadn't known she had. I called the police, filed another report, sent the footage to Amanda. That afternoon, Gerald called. "David, I'm sorry. The company's decided to let you go. The situation with the lawsuit is creating too much disruption. We're concerned about liability. You'll get 2 months severance and continued health insurance for 90 days. I'm genuinely sorry." I hung up and sat in my truck in the grocery store parking lot, groceries getting warm in the back seat, and felt my entire life crumbling. No job, a lawsuit threatening my inheritance, my reputation destroyed, my property vandalized, all because I'd refused to be extorted. That night, I called my mother and broke down completely. She drove 3 hours to come stay with me, bringing food and practical support. "You're going to get through this," she said, sitting beside me, on the couch. "Your grandfather didn't leave you that money for someone to steal. He left it because he loved you. We'll fight this together." Her presence helped. She cleaned the graffiti off my garage door while I filed unemployment claims. She organized my legal documents into clear folders. She cooked meals and made sure I ate. Having her there reminded me I wasn't alone. Amanda called with an update. Simon Northrop had interviewed Colin and Trevor. He'd also tracked down 2 additional victims who'd settled with the Carmichaels in years past. Both were willing to talk. The pattern was undeniable. "Simon's building a case," Amanda said. "He's working with the Financial Crimes Unit. They're tracking the money from previous settlements, looking at the Carmichael family's finances. If they can prove the family has been living off these settlements as a primary income source, it strengthens the fraud and conspiracy charges significantly." I asked how long the investigation would take. Amanda hesitated. "Months, maybe 6. But David, there's something else. Our motion to dismiss the civil suit is scheduled for next week. I think we have a good chance. The judge has seen their amended complaint, and it's so overreaching that it might backfire." The motion hearing was in the same courtroom as the restraining order. Judge Holbrook presided again. This time, Amanda was prepared with binders of evidence, case law, and documentation. Leonard Briggs presented first, arguing that the case had merit and deserved a full trial. He spoke for 20 minutes about Vanessa's emotional investment, her care and support, the implicit understanding between partners in long-term relationships. Amanda stood and methodically dismantled every argument. She cited case law showing that inheritance was separate property in the absence of marriage. She presented evidence that Vanessa's care and support had been minimal: a single doctor's appointment, a few dinners cooked. She showed the timeline, demonstrating that Vanessa's interest in the relationship had intensified precisely when my grandfather's health declined. Then Amanda dropped the bombshell. Your Honor, we have evidence that Ms. Carmichael has engaged in this exact pattern of behavior with at least 4 other men over the past 6 years. Each time, she targets men expecting inheritances, cultivates relationships with them, then demands financial settlements when the inheritance is received. The district attorney's office is currently investigating this pattern as potential fraud and extortion. Leonard shot to his feet. Objection. Those allegations are baseless and prejudicial. They have no bearing on this case. Judge Holbrook held up a hand. Ms. Reeves, do you have evidence to support these claims? Amanda handed the clerk several folders. Yes, Your Honor. Affidavits from previous victims, copies of prior lawsuits filed by the Carmichael family against other individuals, and a letter from the district attorney's office confirming an active investigation. The judge spent 15 minutes reviewing the documents while the courtroom sat in tense silence. Finally, she looked up. Mr. Briggs, these documents suggest a troubling pattern. Your clients appear to have filed multiple similar lawsuits over the past several years, each following the same fact pattern. Can you explain this? Leonard stumbled through a response. Each case is unique, Your Honor. The fact that Ms. Carmichael has had multiple relationships is not evidence of wrongdoing. These men made promises to her that they failed to honor. Judge Holbrook's expression was skeptical. Multiple men, all of whom inherited money, all of whom were sued for remarkably similar amounts. I'm not comfortable letting this case proceed when there's evidence of potential fraud. I'm granting the motion to dismiss with prejudice. Ms. Carmichael, you cannot refile this claim. Mr. Whitmore, you're entitled to seek attorney's fees. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down. Amanda grabbed my arm as I started to stand, my legs weak with relief. Wait, she whispered. Let them leave first. We watched Vanessa and her family file out of the courtroom, Richard's face red with anger, Patricia walking stiffly. Vanessa looked small and defeated. Leonard trailed behind them, already talking urgently into his phone. When they were gone, Amanda turned to me with a fierce smile. We won. The case is dismissed and they can't come back. Now we go after them for your costs. We filed for sanctions that afternoon. Amanda requested full reimbursement of my legal fees, damages for lost wages from my job termination, and punitive damages for the harassment campaign. The amount totaled nearly $100,000. Simon Northrop called 2 days later. David, we're moving forward with criminal charges. We're filing fraud, conspiracy, and attempted extortion charges against Vanessa Carmichael, Richard Carmichael, and Patricia Carmichael. Leonard Briggs is also under investigation for potential bar violations. He may have known about the pattern and assisted anyway. The arrests happened on a Wednesday morning, Amanda called to tell me. They're in custody. All 3 Carmichaels. Arraignment is this afternoon. Bail will probably be set, but they'll have charges hanging over them now. I didn't feel triumphant, just tired. That evening, Oliver came over with Chinese food. We ate in my kitchen and talked about what came next. The criminal trial could take a year, I said. Amanda says I'll probably have to testify. Oliver nodded. But you're free. The lawsuit's gone. You've got your life back. He was right. Slowly, things started improving. My legal bills were mounting, but Amanda was confident we'd recover most of it from the sanctions award. I started applying for new jobs, finding that employers were more understanding when I explained the situation as being targeted by a criminal fraud scheme, rather than going through a messy breakup lawsuit. I got hired as a project manager at a competing construction firm, with better pay and a boss who knew my former boss and trusted his recommendation. My mother went home after 2 weeks, satisfied I was stable. The graffiti was painted over. My truck was repaired. The fake social media accounts were permanently banned. 3 months later, the Carmichaels accepted a plea deal. Vanessa pled guilty to fraud and conspiracy. Richard and Patricia pled guilty to conspiracy and attempted extortion. Each received probation, community service, and were ordered to pay restitution to all their victims. The total restitution amount exceeded $200,000 across 5 victims. Leonard Briggs was disbarred for ethical violations. The state bar found he'd knowingly participated in a fraudulent scheme and failed to maintain professional integrity. His legal career was over. I received a check for $85,000 as part of the sanctions award and restitution. It didn't cover everything I'd lost, my job, my time, my peace of mind, but it was something. Colin called to thank me. You stopped them. They can't do this to anyone else now. That matters, David. Trevor sent an email. He'd gotten his settlement money back as part of the restitution. He was using it to go back to school, finish his degree. The 2 other victims Amanda had found were also rebuilding their lives. One evening, 6 months after it all began, I sat on my back porch with a beer and looked at the house my grandfather had left me. It had almost cost me everything, but I'd kept it, fought for it, won. My phone buzzed. A message from a woman named Elena I'd met through a friend. We'd been on 3 dates. She knew the whole story and hadn't run away. Thinking about you? Dinner Friday? I smiled and typed back yes. Life was moving forward. The Carmichaels were gone, their scheme exposed, their victims compensated. Thanks for watching till the end. Make sure to subscribe and like to not miss the next story.